Hello, everyone. It is really exciting to be here. And what I'd like to do today is propose an idea to you and to the industry at large. And let me start by giving you a bit of background. There are over 1 trillion pieces of new content created on the internet every single day. And that number is increasing. How do we find the good stuff, and how do we separate out the bad stuff from that mass of content? The only way to do it is algorithms. You have to have machine learning-based algorithms to help us find great stories. This is an example of a story that one of these algorithms surfaced for me recently. As a parent of 2 older boys who were getting ready to go to college, this was a piece of content I really appreciated seeing. It's from the Washington Post. They're doing amazing journalism right now, particularly about our democracy in the United States. I wouldn't normally have thought of the Washington Post for a story like this, but because of those algorithms, I was able to find that journalism. And the person who wrote this story really spoke to me. But there's a downside to these algorithms, and it's a big problem, and we've seen this now recently in a number of important areas. For example, algorithms that Facebook uses to target users have been weaponized by state actors from Russia to divide the US population and the US electorate. And not just the US electorate, but also Western democracies as a whole. This is a huge new leap forward for propaganda, for information warfare. Classic techniques of divide and conquer are now able to be optimized at levels never before seen. Here's an example submitted by Facebook. They're working very hard on this problem. It's a big problem. This is an ad that was bought by agents of the Russian government, placed on Facebook, specifically to divide people using race. You can see here's 500 rubles spent. It had all sorts of earned media. It was picked up all over Facebook. Here's another interesting example. You would think that, from what you've heard, the Russians were pro-Trump. Well, Russian agents also placed this ad, according to the House Intelligence Committee, and this is an anti-Trump ad for a rally in New York City for people to come and protest against Donald Trump and against racism. They are using Facebook's algorithms to divide the United States electorate, to divide Western democracies. This is a huge problem. It's not just limited to Facebook's algorithms. This problem is happening everywhere. YouTube, a great company. My kids watch YouTube videos all the time. But YouTube's algorithms for showing related videos have recently been exploited by trolls to harm children. How many of you saw this article on Medium? Let me see a show of hands. How many saw this article? If you've not read this article, I highly recommend it. This is an incredibly important article written by a guy named James Bridle. And he goes through in excruciating detail the ways that algorithms are being used to really create problems for children in particular on YouTube. He talks about it being infrastructural violence. This is a huge issue that we're just starting to get our heads around. This is my proposal. It is time to apply the timeless principles of journalism to algorithms. What do I mean by that? These are the principles of journalism. Let's take the first one, truth and accuracy. Winston Churchill said a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to put its pants on. Now, That was then. Now it happens in an instant. Just happened recently, for example, with the Vegas shooter. Information that was clearly politicized and fake made its way out onto the internet. Facebook's algorithms picked it up, Google's algorithms picked it up, and before you knew it, a lot of people were believing things about the Las Vegas shooter that simply were not true. So, it's very important to understand that there is no algorithm for truth. So how can you apply journalistic principles to algorithms? Well, you put the editors in charge. You take the trained journalists, people who know how journalism works, who can separate out fact from fiction. This is what they do, this is their job. You put them in charge of the algorithms. You have them select the inputs to those algorithms. There's a classic technology phrase, garbage in, garbage out. If you have algorithms that sweep up lots of content, and that content is a mix of good and bad stuff, on the other side, you're going to have a mix of good and bad stuff. But journalists can decide, using editorial standards, what is good, quality, truthful, factual content. And they can control those algorithms to make sure that content gets magnified, and content that is clearly deceptive, clearly over the line, does not get picked up and magnified by the algorithms. Algorithms also need to be monitored. They need to be continuously improved. Algorithms have bugs, they have unintended consequences, and there's always new ways to exploit these algorithms. Editors need to be in charge of seeing how those algorithms are outputting stories and content and be able to adjust them as needed in real time. A second journalistic principle is independence. Algorithms should be in service to the audience, to the public, not to a business model. This is a classic journalistic principle. Journalists pride themselves on being able to write whatever they want to write about because they're not beholden to special interests, not even their own employer. But when you look at some of the algorithms that you see today on the internet, clearly these algorithms are not in service to the public good. They're not in service to the truth. They're in service to business models. This is a huge problem for our web, for our open web. Impartiality and fairness. This is an important dimension of how journalists do their job. Most stories have more than one side. When we only see one side of a story, we become polarized. How can we unite? How can we prevent being divided if we don't know what the other side is thinking? Why someone disagrees with us? Well, editors can tune the algorithms to find different perspectives, a diverse array of perspectives. And they should be able to intervene by hand to show you those perspectives. Here's an example. This is a recent story, AT&T and Time Warner merger. If you look at the story in the center here by Reuters, pretty straight up, factual point of view. They're running into some difficulty. On the right, you would believe that, from Fox News, that maybe Jeff Zucker wants to kill this deal. On the left, you'd see from Recode, well, actually, this is Trump's way of punishing CNN. Who's right? Well, you have an opportunity to read all three of these stories if they're presented to you, and you decide. The public decides. And as you do, you get to understand the nuances of different people's positions, being able to then relate and understand and find the center. Humanity is another major journalistic principle. In other words, do no harm. Journalists are very, very powerful. They can write a story that will completely transform someone's life, for the better or for the worse. Harvey Weinstein's a great example of great journalism exposing bad behavior. That journalism had to be thought through very carefully and did not want to do harm either to the people who had accused him and did not want to do it unless it was warranted. So algorithms should be thought about the same way. Algorithms can also be harmful. Engineers and editors can collaborate together to design these algorithms for making sure that harm isn't done inadvertently. This is something that, if you look at how editors can work with algorithms to adjust algorithms on the fly or stop them altogether if they're worried that harm is being done. So, for example, with YouTube, recommending videos to children who are watching a video at the end of that, maybe that's not such a good thing now that it's been clear that those algorithms are being gamed by trolls. So that's the kind of editorial standard that needs to be applied to these algorithms. And last but not least, accountability. Great journalists, when they're wrong, they're not perfect, they will correct their mistake, and they will publish that correction. The same can be done with algorithms. When an algorithm goes awry, journalists, editors, can make sure that a correction is issued and that the algorithm is corrected and fixed. The industry, our industry, can make sure that these algorithms are open and transparent. Wouldn't it be great if some of these algorithms were not black boxes, were industry standards that we could collaborate on and continue to make better so that they couldn't be so easily exploited? The industry has an opportunity to work together to tackle these new challenges. Algorithms are a fact of the internet. They are absolutely core to what we do, but they have to be held accountable by people. And I'll just leave you with this. This is a great quote from Steve Jobs. He gave this quote. He said it many times, but on his final presentation to Apple, to the public, he said this: technology alone is not enough. It's technology married with liberal arts, married with the humanities, that yields the results that make our hearts sing. I hope you'll consider this proposal. Thank you very much.